What's up everyone, Matthew and Sina here, and today we are reviewing your portfolios, and I'm joined by
Petrula Vrontikis.
And in the last episode of the portfolio reviews, we went deep on 3 particular portfolios. So one of the clear takeaways that we found in episode 1 is that you have to have very focused and clear context for your work that you're presenting to other people, so that when somebody's looking at your work, it's guided for them and they understand the decisions that you made, your role in it, and how you've solved a particular design challenge. So I know we went in depth on a couple of portfolios in the last episode. Today, my goal is to take that information and go a little bit more lightning speed and cover a lot more portfolios. All right, so now let's look at Joel Ho's portfolio. And Joel wants to get a job, and a little context on him. A communication designer student based in Singapore, specializing in branding and typography, often integrating storytelling throughout his body of work, ranging from publications, corporate identities, photography, and illustration.
Sounds so interesting already.
Very interesting and also
Yay.
Very broad,
Yeah.
so we'll see. My assumption is this person is a jack of all trades.
Love it. Okay, I really love starting out with a statement. So this gives me super good context. Yay, Joel.
Yes, Joel is a Singapore-based visual communicator who subscribes to the belief that design should be purposeful, functional, and relevant to its original intention. So that's cool. I also like that. I like having a statement first, just because it's a nice way to frame the rest of the experience that you're gonna see on the website. Big, bold, love it. So I'm gonna start on the top left here. And this project is called World at Your Street 2019. So it has a little context here up front. I'll just read the first paragraph. The Singapore Street Festival is a nonprofit social and community project founded in 2002. SSF is a yearly event offering the opportunity for youth to showcase their diverse talents, skills, and capabilities in performing arts, visual arts, urban sports, technology, and design. The brief was to create a thematic graphic identity for its 18th edition. So I'll just read a little more. Actually, I do want context. That was pretty well written. World at Your Street Ways 2019 aims to foster a community spirit between the local and global practitioners. Ways 2019 provides an avenue for emerging youth talent in the Asia region to achieve new grounds, friendship, works, and leaders through the power of spirit and collaboration.
Okay, so this is great because I'm getting the context of who the audience is, why the audience would care, where it's going to be seen. So this is really good because if I'm going to evaluate this work, I now really know so much more about what his goals are. So for me, I feel really empowered now to see the work in a way that would be authentic, and I can tell whether he solved the problem well because I know more about what the problem was.
World at Your Street. So I'm guessing this is either a poster or cover for something that has the date there. So already I get the sense that it's very eclectic, right? Because the whole idea is to bring communities together.
He could give us some captions that let us know that this is a poster, this is probably a brochure. He's flattened the brochure, so it's hard for us to tell its relationship to how large it is. If he had a hand in there or anything to give me scale, it would be great.
Let's keep going. Oh,
Wristbands,
yeah. For some people, I would imagine, it took me a while to just register what that was, but that's pretty cool. But you're right, this would be better if it was just right on the hand. Much nicer mock-up. And the tickets, World at Your Street. So this is cool. I like seeing all the brand applications. These buttons are beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that iteration of it. I'm guessing that's the website. And then other pages. Then more the specific pages.
He's got what is referred to as a transmedia design problem, where he's taking a particular brand and he's moving that brand into different media types, whether it's a wristband or a brochure or a website. It's really helpful to know what he's trying to do that's different on the poster than on the website.
Right.
So if you can clue us in, then we understand your knowledge about what different media can do or does for a particular branding project.
Right. Actually, I was thinking the same thing, and where I was most delighted is when I called out the buttons.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, the buttons are so beautiful, and that's because of the interpretation of how the brand is applied in this situation. It looks very uniquely different compared to the rest. Whereas I think if we look at earlier on, once we saw the initial poster or cover art, it almost feels like these are just cut downs of the same thing instead of a reinterpretation of how it should be applied. The wristbands are probably a pretty good one, but even that, like we could have just used bold patterns across these instead of breaking it up with so many of the lines.
Let's look at another one of his projects and see how it's going. Oh, let's see what this one is. I have no
This
idea.
barcode
Yeah.
says Geylang. Your passport to one of the least touristy areas of Singapore, an irrelevant guide to all things Geylang, presents residents' checklist of all you need to know about the country's most intoxicating area. Oh, that's interesting. I'm already intrigued.
Yes.
I love the description.
The description is enticing. I don't know anything about this area at all, and I'm ready.
Right. So copywriting is a very important tool that I feel all designers need to pick up, even if it's just a little bit, because writing personally has helped me quite a bit in articulating my ideas. So let's get into this. It says, under slick design cover, this pocket-sized travel Bible unearths the hippest nightlife, the buzziest hotel, and the coolest retail, the most influential makan places, the best in local design, and the contemporary architecture that defines Geylang. They are rigorously researched and curated by an extensive network of one student resident.
Okay, this is super cool because this tells me that this designer has immersed himself in a community. And he is now reinterpreting what he sees in a community. And I can't tell you how important it is for designers not to stay in this bubble, but to go and see how they are observing the world and recontextualizing that in the work they do. So this is, I'm happy about this person, just by the nature of this self-initiated problem to solve.
I love the title, An Irrelevant Guide to All Things Geylang. So this is nice, beautiful typography here. I like the colors.
The typography and layout on this one, I think, is showing me better typographic skills than the World Festival.
The previous one. Yeah. I mean, there's still little things that definitely need to be improved. Like if we look at the lettering here and the N and the T on infrastructure, they're kind of colliding in an unusual way. This little friction point right there, infrastructure. It's like little things, but you're right, it is better than the first example. I love these maps. Like these are nice little spreads.
And it would be helpful if Joel would have had some call outs, because we can't actually really read this, and he set it up that we're going to be delighted about some of these funny, unimportant things. I can't read any of that.
Right.
So I'm not. He's set up something, and he's not yet. We've gone through what, like 7 pages, and we haven't. It isn't really delivered.
Correct.
Okay, let's.
I mean, I like the variance of spreads. Like this is a fun editorial project where you get to break down and make use of image and type at different scales and sizes and contrast. Yeah, and I think there are more opportunities to play with type and photo, where in earlier frames, like you have these fun full spread typesets, but I think you can play more with what's on the left side versus what's on the right side. So I don't know what let's get thorny, because this is a durian fruit, which stinks supposedly, but you know, there could be some copywriting there that's really funny about the smell of durian fruit.
We gotta move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's look at the next
But Joel,
project.
this is really good. I think there's a few missed opportunities that I'd like you to consider a more clear, consistent payoff. But I really like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think this is. I hope you get what you're looking for, because I think things are coming along really well for you.
Yeah, Joel, I just want to say, I want to commend you because I think your copywriting is pretty good. And I think that is a skill that most designers do need to pick up, because it does help contextualize the work, and it gives us a very clear flavor right away before we even see any of the work of what to expect, and kind of puts a delightful moment up front for us as we're getting into these.
It's your superpower, Joel.
All right, let's look at the next portfolio. We have Marie Damier. Marie's goal is to get freelance work. I am a graphic designer who recently moved to New York. I have been in the business for 8 years, and I'm currently working full-time as a package designer. My website showcases branding and packaging projects with focus on typography. I would like to get more freelance work within those same areas, so I'm wondering if my site conveys that message across as a whole. Is there anything that I should add to stand out?
Well, first of all, Marie, just being able to ask us that question, that was super helpful. So
it's great when you're looking for feedback is to let the other person know what kind of feedback you're looking for. Because I get this often all the time where people will send me their portfolio and say, can you review my work? And then that's it. First of all, you're asking too much time of me. And second of all, you're asking me a very big question. And my usual follow-up is, well, what do you want feedback on? What is your goals? How do you want me to look at this? Because I could go all over the place and I could end up focusing on something that you don't want me to talk about. So Marie, kudos to you for framing this very, very tight. So we know that you're in branding and packaging and you love typography. So you want to make sure that your portfolio is a reflection of that. So you can do more work in that area. Okay, so again, we have this nice big opening statement. I'm a senior graphic designer with focus on brand identity, packaging, typography, and digital design. I feel like we could probably lose one of these, maybe digital design, I don't know. Seems as like I'd rather have the focus on brand identity and packaging. And I don't know that you need to go in on typography necessarily. I don't know if people are necessarily looking at that as a particular skill, but what do you think?
I would leave it in.
You'd leave it in?
I think for what she says she wants, freelance work with design firms and agencies, I'm assuming that's what she wants, then they will have high expectations of this. So I'm interested to see more typography, to see if indeed she's delivering on that.
Right. So let's get into this first one, Mocha Gourmet Donuts. Visual identity and packaging for a gourmet donut shop incorporating experimental typography for wall decor. So I'm guessing this is the mark that she made, Mocha. Looks like a dipped donut with some frosting on top, which is actually making me more hungry than anything. In terms of the letter forms on this particular logo, I think it's a little bit jammed up when I squint my eyes. You know, it's really hard to make sense of the forms that I see. So one suggestion I would have is just to take more advantage of the negative and counter space in between the letter forms here to make that a little bit more legible. But what I do like is that it kind of feels like they feel like donuts, like the shape of it. So there's something a little bit fun about that. To contrast that, I think the gourmet donuts feels a little too stiff for me, stiff and clinical relative to this. Because if we just had mocha by itself, that's actually pretty fun looking. And then this, I feel like weighs it down, the gourmet donuts.
Well, take a look at the same thing's happening at the top. If we go back to her, that's what's going on here. She's got this sort of, typographic idea here, and then this gets super straight, super fast. So maybe when she's talking about typography, she's talking about some logo type, okay? But this, in both instances, I'm noticing that this is fairly safe. But let's keep going.
Yeah, I'm not in love with the type pairing there. I like the colors on this. This is fun. They're almost complementary colors. They might be complementary colors, actually. This is fun. I like this stuff. These all over prints. You can see this as wallpaper or the like the paper inside of a donut box, which would actually be nice to see some of those applications. So as we scroll down, I'm hoping, oh, there we go. Yeah. There we go.
I think this is where the design seems to be coming together more. I'm not as fond of the others, but I'm really appreciating the way this packaging application works. So you might want to move that packaging application up.
Yeah, because you want to start with a nice wow element where you draw somebody in with a very beautiful saturated image or sexy imagery, and then you can get into the more rough stuff in between as you build your case back up. I would consider probably cutting down some of the examples and focusing on the things that are really beautiful, just this nice packaging. And I even like this all over print somewhere. Okay, let's look at another bit. Okay, let's look at this very strong packaging, nice imagery up front. Beauty packaging, introducing 3 skincare lines targeting different concerns for women on the facial areas of the skin. So I think that's a 3D package. Again, it's so interesting because the thumbnail was very beautiful. And then when I get here, like I feel like this one is very boring to start with. Like these look more interesting to me than the other one.
This is such a competitive market. I would like to know what she's trying to do that's going to differentiate this brand from others. Because this does have a really strong look. I just want to know a little bit more about the problem she's trying to solve.
Right, so again, a little bit more context there would be helpful so we know what we're looking at.
I have a feeling, I'm not that familiar with this brand, but this is actually possibly an existing packaging form. If it's not, Marie, if you're actually designing packaging forms, let us know that you do that. Because that's quite a specialization within packaging, and it's really hard to do. So if you are doing the form design and the typography, it means a lot more to me understanding those capabilities.
Right. That's where this context will help.
You've given us 3 lines, a black one, a white one, and a red one, and nothing that tells me what the differences are or why they're that way. Or maybe these are options that you're giving a client. And if that's the case, I'd like to know what they did. Okay.
You want to just pick a random one?
Yeah. I'm going to go dishing out.
All right, let's take a look at this one. Typographic recipe tea towels with spice bottles and complimentary DIY scrapbook to jot down new recipes.
So we can see that, Marie, you've got that sort of more hand-drawn, and then when this secondary typography comes in, it's usually pretty conservative. But this is nice. This is nice to see some experimentation. Some of them I'm more fond of than others, but I do get a sense of your approach to typography forms here. I'm confused why we're going from here to here, what the relationship is.
Right.
So the way you photographed it and put it on here, is causing me a little confusion scale-wise.
I think I'm starting to get it here. So this comes in a little package, and these little tea towels, these things, they have recipes printed on them.
Oh, got it.
But again, I think it's the same thing that we saw earlier, where some of these more contextual, beautiful...
These could be posters.
Right.
Or they could be spreads in a book.
Right. The thing is, we don't have the context until we get further down.
I know you think you've told us, but because it's a little difficult concept, I didn't really understand it, and it took a little while longer.
It's the same thing for me.
So Marie, I think even though we've taken just a really quick look in your portfolio, I think because you've done so much work, more food and beverage packaging, that might be that you narrow in on that when you're looking for some of that freelance work, because you've done so much of it. I'm still a little iffy on some of the ways you're working with these type forms. There's some expertise that I'm really wanting to see a little bit more of in regards to some of those forms, because they're interesting, they're expressive, but they think they've fundamentally got some problems that in execution.
Right. It's just lacking the refinement. So if we're looking at this, let's look at her logo right away. So Marie, I like the playfulness of how the D and the M are working together, and then how the this dot on the R is becoming the dot of the I. Like, this is very fun. But then when we get to this gap, this is a really weird gap when we go from I to E, and this negative space right here does not feel resolved, where everything else feels very tight and then compact, and then you have this gap here where now, I don't know if this was meant to align with the dot of the I here below. I'm not quite sure, but it's lacking refinement. And if we look at the curves, my suspicion that there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points on that curve that you drew in Illustrator. This could easily be done in 3 points. So those are little things that I could tell execution-wise just by looking at this that could use some refinement in the letter form. So to highlight the best things, I think you're really good at expressive typography and exploring a lot of things. I think just going all in on the typography part and refining the letter forms is something that you can definitely improve on. And then what Petrula was saying earlier, the packaging is another area that you can have a lot of fun with. And I think with some of the photography examples that we saw in there, it seems like you're already exploring that, which is fine. I think you could go even further on those, because coming up with a really good packaging for a product is the thing that makes it stand out, and that is very valuable to potential employers. All right, so shall we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Now we are gonna look at Daniele De Martis. This person's goal is to get a job. I'm an Italian designer and I live in Italy. Now I'm looking for a job.
I assume you mean a job in Italy. Do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the work might be contextual to the Italian design community.
Yeah.
Okay, so we land here. And the first thing that I get a sense of is that the portfolio is a little all over the place. I see some character stuff right here in the middle row. I'm assuming these are some kind of poster designs here, the last three ones. And then this top one here seems more of like some kind of digital imaging. And then we got some logo designs in the top right. So it feels like it's a little all over the place for me right now.
So Danielle, you have a big missed opportunity under this. Okay, you're an Italian graphic designer. Tell us more.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to know things I can hire you for.
Right.
Right? Things that you specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit about your background.
Mm-hmm. So I go to this project, look at me twice, double color exposure, not much context. This is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that you took the photographs for this to do these double exposures. See, for me, it's like I don't mind seeing personal work, but when I land on here and I see graphic designer, my first assumption is that you're going to be really good at layouts and typography, that whatever design thing you get into. And then I look at this and it's all images. And so there's already a huge disconnect. And if it were me and I'm looking to hire you, I would pass because it doesn't follow my expectations. But you have a lot of opportunities here to give us more context in how we're looking at the work. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one just because this image intrigues me. So Poster Collection Volume 1. So again, no context other than that these are posters, but we don't know what they are. September 2018 Poster Collection. So these look more like self-promotional images, or it's, I guess, various topics, NYC Poster Collection. Like these are beautifully laid out. I love the colors in here. I think these are pretty well done. But I don't know what they're for, so it's really hard for me to gauge them outside of just an aesthetic standpoint. So for me, as somebody who's looking to hire you, if I'm looking to make something in this style, I'll probably hire you for it. But you know, if I'm looking to bring you on to solve different client projects, client problems, I wouldn't know how to use you necessarily here because I don't understand what problem you're solving here. But visually, they're very intriguing. They drew my eye in. But
There's graphic designers that are producing posters for events, for identification, for communication, right? I'm not feeling that the communication part of that is clear. Or there are artists that are using graphic design as a medium. This feels like you're using a poster as a medium for some of your artwork. But I'm not finding a communication goal for it.
right.
So based on what I see, I would probably hire you for a stylistic photography.
So I think it's totally fine to experiment with stuff and to spread your wings in terms of what you want to explore creatively and artistically. The challenge is me being somebody who wants to hire you. I have no idea where your strengths are and what it is I should hire you for. So that's something to consider when you're thinking about the empathetic side of who's looking at your portfolio.
Did Danielle want a job or freelance work? I forget.
They want to get a job.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a portfolio that would probably be more effective getting freelance work because you're basically showing stylistic skills.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think if I were looking at the best bet for Danielle is to be a production artist somewhere where everything's already thought out beforehand and somebody's just hiring this person to execute the design.
So if that's not what you're interested in, then I think the context part will really, really help because we're just looking at the work visually now.
Yeah, we're totally guessing. So I think lots of good creative execution here, but have no idea on how to evaluate it. So just consider that, Danielle, when you're revamping your portfolio and you're putting it out there and you're sending it to people, that they have clear context about what you do. Let's move on. So we're looking at Roberto Orozco, and his goal is to get freelance work. Hi, I'm Roberto. I'm based out of Las Vegas, and I'm a full-time freelancer. I mainly focus on illustrations and also offer design work such as logos. I've been full-time since 2015, and most of my clients are in the athletic and sports-centric industries with some variance in clientele. My work is vibrant and vector-based. My goal is to grow as an illustrator and work with big clients and bigger budgets. So this one's a little bit outside of some of the other ones where we're looking at them mostly as a designer. This one's, Roberto is more of an illustrator. So let's get into Roberto's work. Well, he just wants to continue freelancing, I guess.
Okay, stop here.
Okay.
I like Roberto. I like this picture of him. I really just think it's got great character. And I like what he's saying, small studio bringing big ideas to life. This is really, really fun. Thanks, Roberto. This is delightful.
Great first impression, huh? And then he just gives a quick summary about who he is, who he's worked for.
And I'm really happy that he's telling me some of the clients and projects he's worked on. This is nice. It's really clear, fantastic. Okay.
So let's get into this.
And it's a bold move to do that, because many people will start with the work and not the person. I'm hiring a person and a work.
All right, so as we scroll through this, I think it's reinforced what he called out, that he's all about illustration, and I could definitely see that there's tons and tons of examples here of these vector-based illustrations.
And there's a lot of energy to the work. There's a particular style and approach, but that's fine because that's his style and approach. And
it's very bold. I think from the beginning all the way till now, it seems like it's quite consistent in terms of how it's being presented. So this is very cool. Night Raid Oni Mask. Night Raid is a Las Vegas-based street tuner club focused on high-end cars and custom-built Japanese import race cars. They wanted a unique design that reflected their style and method of taking their street tuner culture. Mask came from the idea that they want its members to be run like a clan, a group that draws the mask and lives in the tuner culture. I wanted to make a more visceral Oni mask that really hit that note. So this is fun. I love the details on this thing. It looks like this is a patch or some kind of, maybe an air freshener or something. And I like the story. I think the context is very nice in terms of understanding who this is for, because it feels quite appropriate for this street tuner culture.
oh, this is my favorite one. I think this is good.
This, what do you call that when it's
Embossed.
embossed? Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. So it's cool.
Good, let's see another one. This is really fun. I like the pizza gang aesthetics.
Yeah. They are a brand that focused on providing direct one-on-one training to their clients. They reached out and needed a fun take on their branding. They wanted to be based on their laid-back style of dealing with clients and keep it fun. So this is super cool, right? Because you don't necessarily think of pizza when you're thinking about getting fit and working out. But I think it's very much like the Planet Fitness approach, where they don't judge you in terms of the gym culture there.
I want you to see the organization of Roberto's website. Behance doesn't offer this, but so many website templates do. So I've scrolled down this whole thing and then I get to see this again. So I don't have to scroll back up. Like this is always available to me, and I can see the depth and depth and depth and depth of this.
So these are super cool. I think it's very clear to me your style and some of the things that you're very good at, so that me as a potential client, if I'm looking for this thing, I could hire you straight up for that.
So Roberto, you mentioned that you wanted to now work for larger companies. Let's say do freelance work for Nike or Adidas or something like that. I think if you were to transfer some of these things onto more sports apparel, show more how this stuff might look in a retail environment, because it is looking very small client-like, because that's what you're doing. What I want to do is for you to look at how some of the larger logos and brands are utilizing not just an image, but that image and its color scheme or form, and maybe mock up a few things that show bigger applications and more widespread, like brand applications. And they would want to see your unique take on apparel logo applications.
Right. So if his goal is to do bigger brands and bigger budgets, you just have to paint that picture. Even if you're not even there yet, with existing work, if you mock it up in a very particular way, it will feel bigger than it originally was intended versus just the isolated illustration that you have here.
And you can take it out of just decorative reason, but you can do a sub-brand of Nike, okay, with your Samurai series, and sort of create a sub-brand label that is for a particular kind of athlete.
So as a fictitious project, you're suggesting?
Yeah. Because there's a very quaintness and small sort of community-based feeling that this has. So if you're looking out for the future to be broader, then this needs to, I need a few examples. And keep them in the first row so people don't miss them.
Cool, let's go to
Thanks,
the next
Roberto.
one. So May Refky wants to get freelance work. And this person says, I'm a freelance graphic designer with 6 years experience. I do branding and web design. So let's take a look. Mishka, hello, my name is May. I'm a designer based in Cairo. So let's go into branding. Okay, so just on first glance, these are nice big images. I like these because it allows a lot of the thumbnails to stand out. They're all pretty minimal or very bold, and they're nice to play off of each other.
Let's go to the top.
Okay, Ifix Egypt. After a successful 3 years in the Egyptian market, Ifix needed a rebrand that communicated its growth and maturity. We wanted to rebrand to feel friendly and clean. So why rebrand? Logo only focused on the eye fixer. iFix now is more than just that. Logo wasn't simple enough. Logo had many colors. Logo had small details. Logo wasn't serious enough. Logo needed a refresh to convey growth. Oh, there's a typo. And a logo that conveyed that.
I don't know what iFix or an iFixer is. So please have more empathy to me as someone who is unaware. You're talking, even in these, after 3 years in the Egyptian market, where are they going? Are they going out of the Egyptian market? What do they do? This is, as the term that Matthew used, all over the place. This is all over the place. And those typos, really, really big problem.
It's Petrula's pet peeve. We know that.
There's a particular familiarity that this has. It looks a lot like a lot of the...
Like Citibank or
Amazon. Citibank. So a lot of times when I'm producing a logo, I will actually do a Google reverse image search to see what is out there that looks just like this. So I would really suggest doing that, because otherwise there may be designers that have done this before, and if you're going to sell, certainly if you're going to sell the stuff to a client, they want it to have more of a distinctive feel, because it really is very referential to logos that exist out there.
Yeah, for me, like, I don't mind if logos look similar or alike at all. Like, that doesn't bother me. What I would like to know is the thinking behind it. So how did you arrive at this, and why did you arrive at this final mark? And I think you wanted to incorporate some kind of smile or face in there based off of some of the slides, but it still doesn't give me any insight as to what the company does and why there's a smile or face involved to begin with.
I still don't know what this iFix is, even with this ad.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out.
I don't think we need to spend that much more time on this. I think the mock-ups and the work look pretty decent. What's challenging is just understanding what the heck we're looking at. Because these applications are actually pretty nice. I love the bold colors, like those are fun. But again, it's very hard to evaluate because we don't know what we're looking at.
Yeah, this feels a bit disorganized to me, and not giving me information I don't need, and not giving me information I do need.
All right, let's stop there. Now we're gonna look at the portfolio of Gillian Wong. And the goal is to get a job
as a junior
graphic designer. Yeah, all right. Wish there was a lot more context there. You have an opportunity to fill this up. Okay, Gillian Wong. So first impression, just landing on the site. It's nice and clean. The images pop out down here. I'm very intrigued by this pasta packaging, so I want to click in here just because it's an interesting image. Very cool. Packaging created for Grandma Marjorie, who is a member of the knitting club where her pasta became famous. This story has become the inspiration behind the design concept. So this is cool. This is some, is it knitting or stitching? I forget what you call this particular.
Needlepoint.
Needlepoint, okay, needlepoint. And then that it's reoccurring in all the design aspects. So that's pretty fun. This is.
Oh, look at how nice this is right here. I love the details in here. I don't know about the word spaghetti, but Grandma Marge.
I like how quirky spaghetti is. It feels like somebody's kind of sloppy handwriting a little bit, but it makes it feel so personal that this has a nice charm to it.
Yeah. It's simply presented. I get the context. So I love the immediacy of this one because in some instances, Matthew and I have had to go deep, 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 deep just to figure something out. So far, so good.
Yeah, very clear. It has a nice visceral reaction from both of us, so that's something that's quite nice on a surface level. So let's jump into this Chop Chop. Chop Chop, a brochure, was designed for a big kitchen masterclass to promote cooking to food lovers and to inspire them to improve their cooking skills. Chop Chop. So I'm assuming there's something immediate about it. Maybe it's a quick class. That's why it's called Chop Chop.
Always dangerous to use typography this way.
Into the gutter?
Yeah.
Yeah, just because depending on how it's stitched in production, you might actually lose a lot of this and it's going to fold over.
And it's rarely aligned.
Right.
Tolerances are such.
Right. So this is easy for a mock-up, but very difficult to actually execute for a lot of these. I like the balance of the typography in these spreads. I do like the colors, but I don't know if they're going to work together very well because even on this, if I squint my eyes, the contrast level between the values of these two colors here, they're very close. Especially on this pink on blue, so it's very hard to read. I think there are a lot of opportunities where you could really play with the typography, and what I was expecting from seeing the front here, where chop is literally chopped here, that I was going to see more fun explorations of typography, either in the recipes or describing what the courses are about. Just having a little bit more fun with that. And I can see the numbers are starting to get cropped off here on the 1 and 2, but I think there's opportunities to go even deeper on that.
Let's go into her photography.
Photography, okay, so this is another tab here.
And then I want to quickly read her about statement. The reason I want to do that is because if I'm looking to hire a junior designer, I'm looking to really understand the broadness of capabilities. So there's a certain way I'm viewing this thing that might be different than someone who's just looking for a freelance job. Okay, so photography's not bringing up anything.
Yeah, I don't
which
think
is a big problem.
Yeah, I don't know if
people will click off like that. If you have any password protected stuff, if you have any project to come, people will give up at that moment. So most people will be gone, unfortunately, on the site.
So now we're in the About section.
Don't work together. She's currently available for work opportunities. Let's see what happens. Again, I mentioned in a previous episode, but I don't like these contact forms. If I bring on a junior designer, if I am an agency or a design firm, I'm looking for a lot of times a broader capability. If I'm a freelancer, a lot of times I'm looking for a specialized skill.
Interesting.
I think. And if I'm in-house, I'm looking for a little bit more understanding of what you do in a particular industry. Like, oh, we're in a lot in food and beverage. So and we're in gourmet, artisanal cooking stuff. So then these two things are going to mean a lot to me.
Right.
So she has some level of expertise and interest in an area that we do a lot of work in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you to a degree. Like I agree that seeing a breadth of work is interesting as long as it's consistently applied. So for transmedia designers, which is a term that's out there, being able to apply the same brand or same design solution across different applications is the thing that I'm looking for. But for the most part, regardless if it's freelance or for staff, I'm still looking for somebody that's highly focused and does a couple of things very well, depending on what I'm looking for them. So if we do a lot of brand identity here, looking somebody who does identity systems, have some examples of that, but in other things, for instance, like posters and stuff, maybe their typography is just really good because those are overlapping skills that I'm looking for. All right, Gillian, so for your work here, I think this pasta packaging thing really stands out. It has a nice visceral feeling. I think this chop also has opportunities to be really fun. I would actually like to just see more of these types of projects on your portfolio, because I think you might have a future for yourself doing these fun packaging types of examples, because this is honestly my favorite one from you. So more of that, more of these things that with a lot of character, because I think you have a future there. All right, let's go to the next one. Up next, Francesco
Battistella.
Battistella. Goal is to get a job. I live in Italy near Venice and I study graphic design and communication. So that leads me to believe this person is still in school at the moment, is probably on their way to exit. First impressions, any?
I'm intrigued by this work. I'm optimistic.
All right, do you want to click in on one of these?
Yeah, let's do either the first or the second.
Okay.
Waves of Carlotta.
Okay, so this is a different kind of presentation style.
Good.
Scrolling left to right. Oh, man, unfortunately, I think a lot of this is in Italian, so we could only assume what we're reading here. I'm assuming this is a museum. What do you think? Some kind of exhibit?
Yes.
Right, because these are tickets for this exhibit, which I always love these types of projects. Museum projects are always super fun, and I love seeing them because they can be so creative, so fun, especially if it's an open project. I know at Art Center they do this project for one of the classes where you can invent your own museum and invent everything about it, including the curation.
Francesca, I really like your work. I really like how you've presented the breadth of this project. I'm very interested in branding projects that are across multiple media types, and I think it's just terrific to see the brochure, the environmental. I like your process. I think for student or young designer work, this is a really helpful, good solution. In this mark, it's a little goofy because it's such a very traditional image, and you've put it in this funny, almost Memphis-y context. I'm a little iffy on the craft of those waves, but that's probably my biggest criticism of this particular project.
Right, so it's in the details that could use some refinement. The overall breadth is the impressive part about this.
I also appreciate how you're presenting it to us.
Let's jump into the slash films. It's very bold for me, so I want to caught my eye. It's loading. And it could be because this is from across the world, so the content delivery is a little bit slower.
It's in Italian, so I assume it's a film production company?
Slash films, yeah, maybe, yeah, production company.
So, Francesca, it doesn't matter if it's just in Italian if you're looking for work in Italy, but if you are looking for work outside of Italy, then you may want to put it in different languages, whether you want to work in France or
right. You just
US
have to contextualize it to the market that you're applying for. So this is super cool. As part of the identity system, slash films is a dynamic identity system. So it has this kind of almost looks like a folded French fry type of thing, where it's moving dynamically, and it looks like it's this part is actually modular and mendable. So what I like about the presentation here that I feel like some other designers can learn from is that even though we don't understand the words that are on the screen, I think the sequence of images are very clear to me in how I'm understanding the story here. So
Yay! I agree completely.
Don't undervalue the importance of how you sequence your images, because here I can see that this is a dynamic identity system, and then right after I see an application for how that lives. These two posters right here, you can see now you have this dynamic mark that's kind of bending for these applications. I think we've mentioned this before, but when you look at a brand and you look at the different applications, it shouldn't feel the same across the board. It shouldn't feel like you just took one key image and tried to wrap it around 10 different things. You should really be thinking about how do you take these graphic elements and reapply it that's appropriate to the brand application, and then feel free to explore with materials, how it's actually wrapping around, and how much or how little of the brand you actually see in there.
So Francesco is showing us this people photography.
Yeah.
And I like this very much. I like seeing your eye for photography develop, and I like seeing that your documentation of life. Even though it's separated out from your work, I like that. We don't have time to go into every single project on your homepage, but one of the things that I love is to see your own photography in your own work. So you might think you're presenting it right in two separate hats. You know, here's when I'm a photographer, here's when I'm a designer. But if you can put that one hat on and show me how you are an amazing graphic designer using your own photography, then I value you more.
Right.
I can really, we don't have to hire an outside photographer. We can work with you, and we can have that image be something that you're really proud of.
Right.
We're all proud of.
I would say to that point too, because if you have control over the photography, if you have your own skills and you're able to take those photos and apply it and combine it with your design, it shows me another layer of thinking that other people do not. So some designers are quite limited in terms of what their skill set is. Usually they're at the mercy of whatever content is given to them. But in this case, if you're able to generate and art direct the photography ahead of time and implement that into your designs, it shows me that you're thinking from a very high level of how all of these things are going to come together.
I like what you're doing here. You're giving me this really very broad, there's a lot of work in this website. And it sounds, still in school?
I think so.
This is really impressive for someone who is a young designer still in school. There's just a lot of experimentation. I can feel your desire to learn. And that's one of the most important attributes if I'm going to work with a junior designer and hire you.
Right. So yeah, some people don't think about this as well, but like I was mentioning earlier, it's all of these things add up. It's all a compound effect of what your about page says, what your landing page looks like, how you choose to sequence the images, what copy you choose to put with imagery. All of these things add up, and I think what Petrula is saying here at the end, what she gets is a sense of your spirit of exploration as a totality of showing this wide breadth of work. But I like that when we landed on there, I knew this person was a designer first, and then I got to explore and go out because I was a little bit more interested and intrigued to read more about it. And you know, this is all separated out in photography and other sections.
Good.
Cool. Good work, Francesco. I think that's it for that.
That's it?
Yeah, I think that's it for
Wow.
the recap. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you got some value out of this episode. I want to first thank my guest Petrula Vrontakis for joining me today and sharing her insights.
Matt.
And I think you guys got some good tidbits from different sides of the aisle here to understand how you can improve your portfolios. All right, guys. Now it's time for our wrap up. If you've seen episode 1, you know that there was a bunch of hurdles that we already went over last time. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you go check out part 1 now. So if there's one key takeaway from today's episode after reviewing all of your work, is that you need to clearly set expectations, then deliver on that in your bio, in your work, and how you talk about how you've arrived at your creative solution. This is positioning. This is the space that you occupy in somebody's mind when they're looking at your work. So if you say you're a designer that does brand identities for food and beverage, but then you follow up and show photography or illustrations, then there's a big mismatch and a big gap. Then me as the viewer who's evaluating, I don't know how to place you. But if you claim a certain expertise or lane and then you deliver on that with very clear presentations of your portfolios, how you speak about yourself, the case studies, the bio section of the website, pretty much everything that points to who you are and what makes you unique and the work that you do. These are ways to over-deliver on how you're positioned and how you're different than all the other designers in the market. This is your way of standing out in the marketplace when a client is looking to hire you or a potential employer is looking to bring somebody on staff. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We have a ton more videos on portfolios, like the 4 tips you can do to improve your portfolio and part 1 of this series. Go check those out. Also, Let us know what you're liking and what your key takeaways were from this episode. Leave us a timestamp comment below so we can make more content like this specifically for you. We'll see you all in the future.